Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being truly well-informed. We dig into stacks of sources to pull out those crucial nuggets of knowledge.
Yep, helping you get up to speed.
And today we're diving into the extraordinary world of Steve Lacy. He was an American jazz saxophonist, composer, just an innovative.
Absolutely, a visionary, really. Left a huge mark on music. He even got a MacArthur Fellowship, the so-called Genius Grant.
That's right, the Genius Grant. So our mission today is basically to explore his journey, his really unique approach to music, jazz specifically, and the impact he had.
Yeah, it's quite a story. We're going to unpack a career that spanned over 5 decades. Think about that, 5 decades.
Wow.
And tracing how he moved pretty seamlessly, actually, from early Dixieland jazz right through to the kind of outer edges of avant-garde, free improvisation.
That's a huge range.
It is. And you'll discover how he almost single-handedly reinvented the soprano saxophone's role in jazz. We'll get into some surprising bits about how he learned, what shaped that distinctive sound he had, and the collaborations that really, fueled his genius.
Looking forward to those aha moments. You mentioned creativity, perseverance.
Exactly. Expect those insights, those connections you can make.
All right, I'm ready. So let's start at the beginning. Stephen Norman Lakritz, that was his birth name.
Right, later Steve Lacy.
Born July 23, 1934, New York City. And he picked up the saxophone. Pretty young, 16.
Yeah, just 16. And his early environment, it seems, was quite supportive. His father was a dentist.
A dentist, okay.
Yeah, but a huge music lover. And he didn't just, put up with Steve's interest. He actively encouraged it, made the home a place where music was really valued.
That makes a difference.
It really does. And what's super interesting is how he started playing. It wasn't music school.
No.
No, he jumped straight into playing Dixieland, that early high-energy jazz.
Right, collective improvisation, upbeat.
Exactly. And he was playing with musicians way older, way more experienced than him. We're talking legends here. Henry Red Allen, Pee Wee Russell, George, Pops Foster, Zutty Singleton. I mean, imagine learning by playing alongside giants like that.
It's like being thrown in the deep end. So mostly bypassing formal training then. Learning by doing, basically.
Very much. Hands-on, deep immersion with these established players. But he did seek out some specific guidance, too.
Okay, who are the key mentors?
Well, you're right. It wasn't all just playing gigs. He did study with a true master, the saxophonist and educator, Sidney Bechet.
Ah, Bechet. Okay, that's a big name, especially for soprano sax later.
Definitely a key influence there. But another really significant early figure, someone who kind of opened doors to new things, was the pianist Cecil Taylor.
Cecil Taylor, okay. Avant-garde pioneer.
Right. Lacy actually played on Taylor's debut album, Jazz Advance, back in '56.
No kidding. His debut.
Yep. And he even played with Taylor's quartet at the Newport Jazz Festival in '57. So you see him stepping into that more adventurous side of jazz pretty early on.
That is early. But what's really striking, I think, is how one composer's music became so central for him. Thelonious Monk.
Oh, absolutely. Monk was, well, you could call it a pivotal relationship. It was almost an obsession, but in the best way.
How so?
Monk's compositions just became this absolute cornerstone for Lacy, like a musical language he deeply connected with.
So he played Monk's tunes a lot.
More than that, he didn't just play Monk, he studied him, explored the music inside out. He recorded an album called Reflections in 1958.
Reflections, okay.
And it was the very first album ever to feature only Monk compositions. Nobody had done that before.
Wow, the first one. That's commitment.
Total commitment. And he even played briefly in Monk's own band in 1960. For Lacy, Monk's music wasn't just tunes, it was like a whole universe. Structure, freedom, melody, weird angles, all at once.
A template for his own thing, maybe?
Exactly, a template for how melody and angularity could, live together.
Yeah.
And beyond Monk, of course, he soaked up influences from others, too. Johnny Hodges, Lester Young.
Saxophone giants.
Absolutely. And contemporaries like the pianist Mal Waldron, the trombonist Roswell Rudd, all these connections from Dixieland to Monk to the avant-garde, they all fed into his unique sound.
Let's talk about that sound, especially on the soprano saxophone. He played alto and tenor too, but the soprano, that became his horn.
It really did. He's hugely credited with popularizing it in modern jazz. It just wasn't that common an instrument before him, not as a primary voice anyway.
So how did he get that distinctive tone? It's so clear, so soakous, but also kind of edgy sometimes.
Relentless experimentation, that's the key. He treated the soprano like a scientific project.
Huh. In what way?
Constantly trying different reeds, different mouthpieces, messing with fingerings. He wasn't just playing notes, he was exploring the physics of the instrument.
Pushing its limits.
Totally. He got deep into extended techniques, things like multiphonics, getting multiple notes at once.
Right, which is hard on a sax.
Very. And playing with overtones, emphasizing those higher harmonic frequencies to get richer sounds. It wasn't just showing off. It was about expanding what the saxophone could say,
Yeah.
adding new colors, new dimensions. That really cemented his identity.
And that identity musically was hard to pin down. You mentioned Dixieland roots, but then Cecil Taylor, Monk, free improvisation, that's a huge spectrum.
It is. His music really defied easy labels.
Yeah.
Dixieland, avant-garde, free improv. He touched it all.
What drew him towards the avant-garde? It seems like such a leap from, say, Dixieland or even Monk.
I think for him it felt like a natural progression. It wasn't about abandoning melody or structure, not entirely. It was about finding more freedom, more room to experiment.
Pushing boundaries.
Exactly, pushing the boundaries of traditional jazz harmony and rhythm. But what's really cool is that even when he went way out there, his music often kept this strong sense of melody and structure.
How so?
Well, as a composer, he had this very distinctive style. Sometimes a whole piece might be built from just one little questioning phrase.
Just one phrase.
Yeah, repeated, twisted, looked at from different angles. It gives the music this meditative, almost philosophical feel. His sound blended everything jazz, classical touches, avant-garde textures. Critics called it a perfect balance of intellect and emotion.
Intellect and emotion, I like that. He showed that free doesn't have to mean chaotic.
Precisely. Even in the freest context, there was usually this deep internal logic, this underlying structure.
And that unique balance must be why he attracted so many collaborators. You mentioned Mal Waldron, Roswell Rudd, Cecil Taylor.
Yeah, the list is long and incredibly diverse. And these weren't just one-off gigs. They were often long-term partnerships. Think of them like ongoing musical conversation.
Well, workshops almost.
Kind of, yeah. Constant workshops where ideas got swapped, limits got pushed. Each collaboration seemed to open up new territory for him, leading to really innovative records. His work with Mal Waldron, for instance, often had this deep lyrical quality.
And his influence spread beyond just the people he played with.
Oh, definitely. It radiated outwards. You can clearly hear echoes of Lacy's approach, his sound, his compositional ideas, in countless saxophonists who came after. People like Anthony Braxton, Evan Parker, John Zorn, Tim Byrne.
Big names in creative music.
Right. Many of them explicitly point to Lacy as a major inspiration. He basically offered a new blueprint for what the saxophone could do, and maybe what jazz itself could be.
So, innovating, pushing boundaries. It sounds amazing, but it surely couldn't have been easy all the time. Did he face significant challenges?
Oh, absolutely. Like many artists who forged their own path, that transition, moving from the more traditional jazz world into experimental and avant-garde music. That was tough.
How so? Was it acceptance or?
Both, really. These were niche genres, not exactly mainstream. They often face skepticism, sometimes outright hostility from audiences, critics, even other musicians.
And less commercial potential, I imagine.
For sure. Fewer gigs, less money, more uncertainty. He was moving away from sounds people knew and liked into something unfamiliar, challenging. That takes real conviction.
So how did he navigate that? You said he embraced his unique sound, but what did that look like, practically?
It meant really committing. Doubling down on his vision, even when it wasn't popular or easy. Practically, it often meant building long-term bands with musicians who shared his vision, like Roswell Rudd, people he could really develop the music with over time.
Sticking with his allies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it also meant spending significant periods living and working in Europe.
Oh, Europe. Why there?
Well, often the avant-garde and experimental scenes found, let's say, more receptive audiences and sometimes more institutional support, like grants or festivals, in Europe compared to the U.S. at certain times.
Interesting.
He didn't chase commercial success. He prioritized artistic integrity. And that unwavering focus, that perseverance, is ultimately what cemented his legacy as a true original. It's a powerful example of just sticking to your guns, artistically speaking.
And that integrity, that commitment, it wasn't just about his own music, was it? It extended to the jazz community itself.
That's absolutely right. His legacy isn't just the recordings. He was deeply committed to supporting other musicians and the art form.
In what ways?
He was a big, longtime supporter of the Jazz Foundation of America, the organization that helps musicians with financial aid, medical costs.
Right. Essential support for artists who often lack safety nets.
Exactly. He understood that. And beyond that, he was involved in education. He taught, he mentored young musicians, notably at the New England Conservatory of Music for a while.
Giving back.
Completely. Nurturing the next generation, supporting the community that had supported him. It was a full circle thing for him.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, Steve Lacy's mark seems undeniable. One of the most innovative, influential figures in jazz history.
No question. Saxophonist, composer,
Yeah.
he truly changed things.
Popularizing the soprano sax, giving it a whole new voice in jazz, pushing boundaries constantly, and creating music that was, like you said, both experimental and deeply melodic.
Yeah.
That balance again.
That balance, intellect and emotion, his journey is such a strong reminder, isn't it, about staying true to your vision.
Yeah, perseverance. It applies way beyond music.
Absolutely. In any field, really.
Mhm.
Creative work, problem solving. His story shows that innovation can thrive even when things are tough, even when you're going against the grain.
Find your voice and have the guts to follow it.
That's it, no matter where it leads.
And maybe a final thought to leave everyone with, something from Lacy himself. He once said, "The future is not what it used to be, but it's still worth looking forward to."
I like that. It captures his spirit, I think.
Yeah, that optimism, that excitement for what's next in music, even with all the changes, it's a great reminder, that art, the human spirit behind it, it always finds a way. It endures, it evolves.
It really does. Something to
Mhm.
think about. What possibilities your own future still holds.